I'd noticed him sweating and wiping his face. I guessed it was his diabetes and got him a candy bar, but he didn't seem any better. "Dad?" I said again. He didn't like talking about his health and didn't seem concerned about it either. I felt like I was constantly having to monitor him. I recalled a dive the summer before when we'd had to surface early because his blood sugar was low and he got disoriented at 50 feet. It was episodes like that which worried me. "Dad, are you able to go down or not?" It was over 100 feet to the sea floor, and I wasn't a certified dive master like he was. I'd certainly been that deep many times before, but it wouldn't look very professional to the Jordans if I replaced Dad as their guide. But if something were to happen to Dad at those depths, people like the Jordans couldn't be relied on to help him. "Mr. Jordan won't like me guiding them," I said.
"I'm not worried about what that jerk likes and doesn't like,"
Dad replied.
"Those two are reckless enough to get themselves in trouble down there, and I don't want you mixed up in it."
"I can handle myself," I said.
"I know, but I can still be worried about it."
Dad's the toughest person I know. I once saw him stitch a cut on his leg with a fishhook and fishing line so he wouldn't have to end a dive trip early. I knew if he decided to send me in his place, he would have to be feeling really bad. But one of the most important rules of diving is if you don't feel right, don't go down. There are already too many things that can go wrong with a person's body in the depths without adding other complications. I exited the wheelhouse to find the Jordans arguing about their spear guns and who got to take the larger one. Shane was about my age. He and I had been in the same class at elementary school when I lived with my parents in Gulf Shores. That was before Mom and Dad divorced, and I moved to Atlanta with Mom, leaving Dad behind in our old house. Now Shane was taller than I remembered, and he'd grown his hair out so that it hung almost to his shoulders in a style popular with local surfers. He wore a Salt Life t-shirt, Aftco shorts, and deck sandals, all of it looking like he'd pulled the price tags off that morning. He's smart, athletic, wealthy, and good-looking if you like the type. I don't like the type. Even when we were younger, he struck me as one of those kids who complain about everything like they're in a constant battle with an unfair world, when I can't imagine they know anything about unfair. Shane's father was a local attorney, but his face was on interstate billboards clear to Montgomery. On the advertisements, Hank Jordan looked tall and young in a trim, expensive pinstripe suit. He held a stern expression and had his arms crossed over his chest like he'd just solved a big problem. What I saw standing before me in a fishing shirt, shorts, and Crocs was a shorter, wrinkled version of the man on the signs. He looked a lot more like an aging weasel.
"This it?"
Mr. Jordan asked. "Yes," I replied as I made my way up to the bow. "We're at the Malzahn tanks." That's what Dad and I called them after the guy who hired us to put them in the water. I unfastened the anchor chain and held it while Dad maneuvered the Barbie doll, taking it in and out of gear and assessing the current. Finally, I heard him tap on the window glass. I let the chain slip from my hands and heard the anchor plunge into the water. For scuba divers, this basic piece of boating equipment is much more than something to keep us moored in place. It's our guide to the sea floor and our lifeline back to the boat. I leaned over the railing and watched the white rope stream into the depths. The visibility was decent, but the current was strong up top. I hoped it wasn't as swift down below. That's one problem with scuba diving. You don't really know what dangers you're up against until you're deep into them. 2. I waited until the rope grew taut and I heard the engine groan as Dad backed against it. Then I could see by the way the rope stretched and dripped water that the anchor was holding. I looked at Dad and gave him the okay signal with my fingers. He shut off the engine and I threw out the safety line, a smaller rope that floated alongside and that we used to get ourselves to and from the anchor rope once we were in the water. When I returned to the stern, I found the Jordans arguing again. This time Shane was complaining that Mr. Jordan had left his dive gloves at the house. It seemed there was no end to the things.